Perfect. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being with us in this cold, miserable, wet, still winter, but it just seemed like we were gonna have we were smelling spring already, and then kaboom, right, Jen?
The groundhog had different plans.
Yeah, I hope everyone's doing okay. Today's Friday, February 24th, just a few more days of February. I just can't believe it already. Happy to start a new collection of paintings. If you got a chance to watch the webinar, we're gonna paint avocados. And Jen, I'm gonna ask you a few things. If you can find images and you want to upload them, because I didn't have time and I only uploaded the paintings of Georgia O'Keeffe.
Okay.
And I think Darlene is interested in seeing if there are any other examples. Anything you can find. My personal premise would be 2 avocados and not sliced,
Okay.
but absolutely anything.
Okay.
Yeah, as a reference.
Let me look.
Okay, perfect. And I'll do this. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
And also I'll ask you a ton of questions today because, sorry, friend. I am going to, this is the third painting collection. We've talked about how I'm going to try to strive for using like a little bit of an upgraded base or support. Not that there's anything wrong with paper. We're just meeting every week talking about the life of Georgia O'Keeffe, and she used watercolors on paper many times, and paper is a very someone was talking this week. I'm listening to a series of conversations on Black painters. Alma Thomas was in the conversation, and she used collage with the same Arches paper that we use. Instead of the oil Arches paper, she used the watercolor Arches paper to build these beautiful compositions. There's nothing wrong with the support, absolutely nothing. But I just have a bunch hanging around, and I thought it'd be nice to have like something more solid. And I think it's 10 by 10, this really tiny square. I was so happy. This felt almost like a like a Christmas gift. I didn't know I had something like that. So I'm going to use that. And then this weekend, I went to the farmer's market and I bought one is not happening. I bought a few avocados. So I'm going to choose 2. And I have a side table. They're ripe already. They were kind of like green. Okay. And I'm going to study this composition. So did I step on this? I hope not. So this will be essentially, I just put him on the table. I have the light. Let me see if I can just give you a little bit of a preview, but I chose something, a small format, because I think I want to just finish this today, if I can. If not, still leave the avocados here. It's freezing cold, so here we go. So I'm gonna just kind of like plan for it, but I just chose like a white table. I haven't done a proper still life in a while, so this will be it. And I'm not gonna be able to show the actual still life as I do it, but hopefully this will be okay. And I was prepping the paint on the palette, but actually I'm just gonna start with the sketch and the composition. And yeah, the whole idea, I just with this biography, learning so many things. We're learning so many things about Georgia O'Keeffe that I had no idea about. We've been reading books about several artists, and I think in the past 2 seasons, we've proposed books that contain biographies of a bunch of artists. So when you have to go through so many artists and you have very little space, I mean, you get the impression of their life and work, but now reading this break of a book, The author, by the way, yesterday joined the conversation. She was there and it was pretty amazing. We have invited her every week, and we spoke with her over the phone at the very beginning, and she said she was up for it. Hold on a second. She was up for joining us, and she did. Yesterday, she joined the conversation. It was pretty amazing. Anyhow, so one of the things that we've learned is that she loved painting still lifes, number one. We also were surprised to learn that she wasn't verbal. And at the beginning, I wasn't sure what that meant. But she had a difficulty communicating her emotions. She wasn't a Pisces. She was a Scorpio. So that makes a lot of sense. Anyhow, forget that. But she also hated, literally, she didn't like painting people because there was a teacher that told her that when she did a model or she painted a model, it was really bad. The teacher told her, and she was a perfectionist. She destroyed some work. So she just said, I'm never going to paint figures anymore. And she never did. If you think of any of her paintings, you will never see a portrait, let alone a self-portrait or a figure in any of them. So in her way, because of her internalized emotional life, her connections and attraction to many people, she just decided that her way of like painting people was to use fruits. And she painted a bunch of still lifes with apples, sometimes single apples, sometimes two apples, sometimes many apples representing her own family. So simply beautiful. And I think it was during this time already, that she was passionately in love with Alfred Stieglitz, the infamous photographer who allegedly contributed to her stardom. So there was correspondence, and the written word was much more verbal than the spoken word. She was able to express her feelings and very passionate. So she started doing like avocados. The book doesn't exactly tell you if the avocados were a representation of her and Alfred, which could have perfectly been the case. It doesn't mention, the book doesn't mention the idea of pairs meaning like two. But if you look at the paintings, there's so many twos, two of these, two flowers, especially at the very beginning before her nervous breakdown when she stopped painting altogether for a year and a half. She may not have been verbal, but she was very emotional. So who knows? She was also very sexual. She embraced her own sexuality, and we're talking about the beginning of the 20th century. She was an absolute feminist with a very strong feminist conscience since she was very young, and reading a lot of like feminist literature, very involved, not in an activist way, but she was perfectly aware of the restrictions of society and all the stuff that we talk about today. So at the time, the author makes assumptions about this symbolizing body parts. I find it like funny. She not only painted avocados, but she also painted two eggplants, and she also painted, I forgot exactly the other fruits, but something that felt very anatomic. Sorry, that's probably too much information. But yeah, I thought, what a choice of fruit. We've never painted avocados. They're ugly. They're not pretty. They're weird. They're kind of like brownish. There's nothing really appealing. The paintings are exquisite. There's a few of them in the folder that we shared with the email. And I'm just gonna turn this off a little bit. So that's the intro, and I'm just gonna go ahead and start sketching. But the book is like about 900 pages long. We're past like the half point, something like crazy. And Jen, I need your help because this were called alligator pears, which I thought is such a cute name. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I forgot. It was somewhere in the book. I spent an hour this morning trying to find the page. I don't know if she named them or that was the actual name of the fruit back in the 1920s. Have you ever heard that?
So I looked it up. I looked it up, and evidently, yeah, that is something that people called avocados
Okay.
back in the day. So it wasn't something that, yeah, that she made up. It was how
Okay.
people referred to an avocado.
Okay.
And I'll try to find the article of why we stopped calling them alligator pears and started referring to them as avocados, because that came up for me. But I'll try to find it.
Thanks. I just had no idea. I thought it was a cute way that she invented to name them.
I
Um,
know, it's super cute.
yeah, it's super cute. I like it better actually.
Totally.
Um, so yeah, if you can find out maybe the etymology of the word avocado, maybe there's something rooted in an indigenous heritage, perhaps. I was mentioning in the video, I didn't grow up. I didn't grow up with avocados. I never thought I was going to say something like that. But it was a fruit that just showed up in the, I would say, late 90s. If you could find it. Yeah, it wasn't something that you know, my grandparents were farmers. You know, we had like free fruit and veggies at the house growing up, but no avocados. So I just wonder, she traveled a lot. Georgia O'Keeffe loved Texas. She loved the South. She loved plain landscapes, absolutely loved that environment. Hated everyone living there, hated everyone pretty much, period. But loved the land. She didn't like people. Georgia O'Keeffe didn't like people. No surprise there. So she thought she was going to be an art teacher for the rest of her life. And she started teaching in Amarillo in Texas. Hated it, hated the people, but liked teaching art. And so I just wonder if, and then I don't know, you don't have to do this, Jen. It's not in the book, but I just don't think there were avocados in New York City in the 1920s, unless maybe it was a thing and they were super popular. But
I seriously doubt it. I mean, you talk about growing up in
okay,
Spain
good.
without avocados. I don't think I saw an avocado in Virginia. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if anyone, I'm trying to think of where everyone grew up that's um, on this recording right now. But I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe Darlene had seen an avocado, but like, I don't think I had seen an avocado in Virginia. So New York in the 1920s. I'll look it up, but yeah, that would surprise me.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's just, and we're talking about a time, you know, 1920s, New York City was the Babylon of the world. So maybe that was like something. I wonder, first of all, where are avocados native from? And I'm guessing if they're native also from Mexico, perhaps there should have been like more predominant in the south of the US than in the north. I don't know much about, you know, I know also I asked the farmer this weekend, are avocados in season right now? And she said yes. The season goes from November or something until June or something like that, a long time. So yeah, we're in full avocado season, I guess. Um, so let me just kind of like start sketching. Sorry, I'm just taking too much time, but I'm just so curious and also surprised that we haven't done this before. First of all, take your time to play around with compositions. Something important and something that is really powerful. By the way, so far, what we have learned about her, she was so good at what she did, like painting, that it doesn't matter if she would have not known Alfred Stieglitz, if she would have not been quote unquote discovered. It doesn't matter. Her work was impossible to suppress, omit, ignore, or brush aside. She painted at the time like nobody else did. So I think that's number one, because it's important to kind of like say that she was an amazing artist on her own right, and she didn't need Stieglitz to promote her work. Something also very important, composition. Decide how you want to feature the avocados on this. This to me, it's even more important than the actual subject composition in this case, just because, as what I was mentioning earlier in the video, photography at the time was in its most incredible, I would say, period. There were a lot of like very important photographers that were doing, I'm talking about 1910s and early 20s. They were doing amazing things. So much so that a lot of painters were influenced by photography, and a lot of photographers were influenced by painting. There were a lot of photographers that at the time that they tried to do what they call pictorial photographs, photographs that looked like paintings. It was a trend that didn't last very long, but she was in love with the most famous photographer in the country at the time, who was a proponent of this pictorial photography. So they were playing with composition, point of view. Where is the point of view of your painting? Georgia O'Keeffe, by the way, also used photography as a reference, even though she didn't mention it like publicly. But she used, especially when she painted landscapes in New York or cityscapes. Some of the cityscapes, because of research, they were determined that they were because of the perspective, the angles. We know because we've done it before. We know what it feels like to be outside and what it feels like to work from a photograph. We know how to distinguish both references. So she did use photography to do some of her New York City cityscapes. So yeah, these specific avocado paintings or alligator pears, which I prefer the name, have a very photographic kind of like viewfinder approach, up close, isolated from everything else. I don't know, there's something really incredible about the shapes that occupy almost the entire space. The negative space is somewhat abstract. So this incorporation of abstraction and figuration, we may just look at them now and they seem like the typical modern paintings, modern meaning like mid-century or a little bit before mid-century. But if you spend a little bit of time looking at the images, they're quite amazing, not just because they're avocados, but the composition of them. So I don't know. I just don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to combine them. I love the idea of two as well. So maybe I'll do something super simple, but I want to make them super big. My gosh, I'm not sure. So yeah, I'll make them super big. Almost occupying the entire space. Let me see. I'm already feeling it as usual. We think this is gonna be easy, and I know I am already feeling that this is just gonna be extremely challenging. The simpler it looks, it's just so funny. Okay, so I'm having like some issues and problems because I love the cast shadow, but this one is going to be cropped on the side. I just want to decide if I like that or if I want to incorporate the shadow. I'm deciding now that I want to make them a little bit bigger. So I'm going to do one kind of like full avocado, much larger. Even cropped. Should I make it cropped? Why not? All right. I'm going to concentrate on this alligator skin. And I'll make the other one. Something really beautiful, powerful, interesting about reading this biography. I mean, I think it's like common knowledge, I would say, or maybe I'm just assuming things, but there was this frustration of Georgia O'Keeffe painting things that they look very sexual. I mean, you look at those paintings and you start imagining, you know, genitalia, blah, 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 and all that stuff. She didn't like that. She didn't like the way people wrote about her paintings. Stiglitz used that to kind of like as a selling point. He was the one who actually not promoted, but he didn't have any problems when people wrote about her work in such almost pornographic way. So at some point in the story, you're like, I was confused. I wasn't sure because certainly her choice of subjects, it is very sexual. And she was very comfortable in her own skin in that regard. She was way ahead of like other women, or the rather than other women, the idea of other people, the idea of women that other people had. It's probably better. But at the same time, she completely despised and she didn't appreciate the fact that people wrote about her work in such a sexual way. And to me, it just became a little clearer. She was completely comfortable with using subjects to represent people. And that just came out in a way that wasn't necessarily sexual, but more emotional. The issue that she had with people writing about her work and those things, it's the fact that the language that people used was really graphic and really degrading. But in fact, I don't think she tried to do something non-sexual with her pieces. I don't know if that makes any sense, but she embraced the subject. She wanted to express this intimacy. She wanted to sort of like expose her vulnerability and talk about her work. You know, some writers explain that her landscapes are topographies of her own skin, her own body. So she saw landscape as an extension of her body. And if you think this way, she saw other objects as extensions of her own body. And that's why in the book, the author proposes the relationship or parallels between the two avocados and her two breasts. So not in a sexual way, but in her own way. I don't know. I'm having difficulty explaining, but it just seems very clear. She embraced her identity. She didn't like people to talk about that embracement in gross and objectifying ways. So, and she was also provocative in the sense that, you know, she didn't shy away from using, you know, subjects that were giving you an innuendo. So who knows if this were not only representations of a couple of two people, but also extensions of their own bodies. I don't think there's anything like super gross about that. And that's one of the reasons why when I thought of Georgia O'Keeffe, I never thought of these things happening in the early 1910s. She was so ahead of her time, not only in painting, but in these concepts, that when I actually realized that this was 1920s, I was like, wow, it's much earlier than I thought. Anyhow, so I think I'm a little bit more comfortable with what's happening. But by the way, our suggestion was to kind of like focus on something that seemed like a parallel to her work, but by no means don't stick with the idea of the uncut alligator pears. If you feel like you want to cut them or just paint the pit or the empty or the chopped up, or the combinations and possibilities are endless. I just thought of the idea of as a subject. It's not how someone would photograph or paint an avocado. I think we've seen avocados in commercials and ads and stuff like that, and they're always sliced. We've seen like toys with the shape of an avocado, and they have like smiley faces on the pit, and you know, squeegee or whatever that's called. Yeah, really cute and depicted like almost like human-like, but they're always sliced, you know. There's no interest in just doing the avocado, but just with the skin. So that's why I thought, yeah, this is pretty nice. So she had an art professor early on who influenced her to paint in a way that was I don't want to use the word perfect, but beautiful. So aesthetically, it had to be pretty, but pretty in the sense like, you know, really well put together. The paintings are calm and soft, and with a palette that's exquisite, harmonious, well studied. There's something that visually you can argue about in regards to how aesthetically strong her paintings are. So she kind of like carried that throughout the rest of her life. She didn't want the paintings to tell a story necessarily. She felt like paintings had to give you a sensation. You had to feel them, not just see them and then have an opinion, but she wanted people to feel something when they would look at her paintings. So that's why, yeah, that was like really important for her. All right, Jen, did you find anything or?
I've just been uploading
Oh, images. Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So I've just been doing that.
Thank you. So this is what's gonna be. I'm just gonna start like shading this darker to lighter, just so I can get an idea. Thank you. I was gonna say it's thank you, Jen, an idea of yeah, I think that's it. You know, I just don't for starters, if you look at the photos in the folder and the way she composed the avocados, and you're doing the avocados right now, that's why I love what we're doing right now, you can appreciate much more how brilliant those compositions are, because it's not easy. It's not easy to put together two avocados in a format and make it look like they're dancing, or there's a really well calculated choreography between the avocados and the light, the surface where the avocados are laid on, and the size, the position. You look at those paintings and they're like, oh yeah, so two avocados, lots of green, that's pretty. You try to do something and then you realize that those are incredible achievements in visual translation, if you ask me. Simple. Try to choreograph two avocados in a format and talk to us later and see if you change your mind about how amazing those paintings were. Yeah, by the way, I'm pretty sure that you probably have seen this in the news. I think it was last week. Her ranch is up for sale in, I think, Arizona. It's $15 million. It was purchased by Paul Allen, who was passed away recently, one of the co-founders of Microsoft, I believe, one of the wealthiest persons in the entire world. He passed away, and he bought the house in the early 2000s. I think he bought it for $2 million, and now it's for sale for 15 million. Iconic, amazing. If you haven't seen it, Jen, very interesting, simple. The Dalai Lama apparently stayed in that house. There is a banyan tree in the yard. She was fascinated with trees. She painted trees again to represent people, and especially banyan trees. She was into theosophy and Eastern religions. So yeah, I think it was, I don't know if it was a gift from the Dalai Lama, but a seed from the allegedly original banyan tree, the original meaning the one that people believe Buddha fasted and meditated under. She got one seed, and that it's in that house, and it's a tree right now. So yeah, it was kind of like recently on the news, and I thought, wow, that's really nice. Georgia O'Keeffe had a very austere upbringing, no aristocracy, no 1%, farmland, Wisconsin, Sun Prairie, I believe. Really hardcore upbringing. Her mom was amazing, incredibly intelligent, and she believed that the best gift that she could provide to her kids was education. And she had a few kids. It wasn't just Georgia O'Keeffe who was a painter, but her sisters were also painters. But yeah, they had no luxuries, but the only luxury was to provide education to her kids, which was amazing. That was the late 1800s. I'm just saying this because we are learning, because of her artwork and connections, she became, I kind of like it. I think Darlene and Laura, you were in the conversation. We had this back and forth between Team America and Team UK, if I may say. meaning, you know, she gained recognition and financial success, thankfully, early in her life. By early, I mean late 20s. But she just became part of the elite. She hanged out with the Rockefellers and really wealthy people in New York City, and the Ghost Ranch in New Mexico was sort of like the Four Seasons, not even the Four Seasons, the Ritz of the wealthy people from the East Coast. And they would go to Ghost Ranch to spend some time. And I think Ghost Ranch still open, and it's still a pretty very privileged place. But you know, with writers and intellectuals and powerful people, so she did become, and she loved it, and she deserved it, if you ask me. She didn't think twice about it, and yeah, she had an absolute glamorous, fabulous, incredible life of the 1%. We were just talking about the fact that she was part of the 1%. I like that. Why not? You know, she certainly deserved it. I don't know. We haven't read the rest of the book, but I thought that was really funny, the discussion. She was friends with Duchamp. She was friends with a lot of like really famous people. We also, by the way, Jen, she wanted to do a mural. So next time you go to New York in March, because everyone was doing murals, and Diego Rivera was doing murals, and you know, she just wanted to do something big and important, just like everyone else. And they gave her a commission to do a mural in one of the powder rooms at the Radio City Music Hall in New York City, a building that I've never visited inside, which apparently it's amazing. It has a lot of artwork and murals. She was very excited. Stiglitz, her then like husband, he was married and he had a kid, and that was like a really bad story right there, but they got married finally. Didn't want her to do it. He was opposed to the idea. She fought for it. It was very stressful. She got the commission. There were problems with the installation of the canvas and plaster in the powder room that delayed the process. There was a contract involved. She was supposed to do the commission. So I think her stress level and the fact that he was having an affair, or so many affairs at the time, but one specifically, everything combined, the fact that there was a delay, she didn't do the commission after all. It was given to a Japanese artist who painted flowers, by the way. But that was the cause of her nervous breakdown. She was hospitalized. She was diagnosed with clinical depression. She couldn't paint. She couldn't do anything. And it was because of that. But after that, Elizabeth Arden, one of the first self-made millionaire women in New York City, friends with her, supporter of the arts and admirer of Georgia O'Keeffe, gave her the commission to do a mural in gymnasium or health spa that she built, Elizabeth Arden, in New York City, which is a building that still exists. And yesterday, someone in the room told us that they moved that mural from that building, and now it's in Minneapolis in the museum.
Oh wow!
But anyhow, so
was Elizabeth Arden? She did like the Red Door Spa, right? That was her thing.
I don't know. You may be right.
I think so. I think that was her. The Red Door.
I don't know.
I saw a musical my 40th birthday on Broadway called War Paint. And it was about Elizabeth Arden and her nemesis, um, who I actually don't know her name, but she was this very famous um, cosmetology
Oh,
rival,
wow.
actually. Um, she was Jewish. I'm gonna look up her name. But the two actresses were Patti LuPone, played
Oh,
Elizabeth
wow.
Arden's rival, and then Christine Baranski, but
Oh my
Christine,
gosh.
oh my gosh, the other Christine.
Wow.
This is a terrible story.
No,
Who played
no.
the other part, and the women were brilliant. The show was sad. It was really sad about these
That.
two women at the top of their game that were just incredible, that changed the world of,
Mm.
like you said, Elizabeth Arden, the first self-made millionaire. Like
Oh,
they,
wow.
these women should have been celebrated, celebrating each other,
Right.
understanding there's room for both. And I understand why the competition. I'm sure
Yeah.
that the world didn't have enough room for two women to be at the top. I understand that, but it
Yeah.
was really sad to watch these two women like tear each other
Wow.
down. Um, anyway.
Thanks for sharing that. No, no, no. I wasn't. Yeah, that's the only reference that I had, but I'm glad that you share that. That's amazing. Yeah, it seemed like, it was like so many amazing things happening at the time. I mean, and
Mm,
so many horrible things also happening, especially, after the crash, uh,
mm,
1929, I believe, or something
mhm.
like that. But yeah, it's such an incredible. We always look to kind of like Europe for
Right.
glamorous stuff and everything. My gosh, no. I mean, yes, but
Right.
there was a lot happening in New York City,
Oh, for sure.
the East Coast for that matter.
Okay, I found some fun stuff about avocados.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Um, okay, the avocado, according to NPR, had been part of Central and South American diets since 500 BC,
Oh my gosh.
but it had gone by the name. Okay, Julio, I'm gonna need your help.
Oh my gosh.
It's a ahuacate, AHUACATE. I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Yeah, put in the chat. Yeah,
Yeah. AHUCATE.
I'm just and creating my palette, by the way. I'm gonna start staining.
Okay, so that word is derived from an Aztec word, which is even
Aguacates, yeah, aguacate.
thicker. That's Awakakauatal. I'm gonna put this one in. So this is
Wow.
the bigger word that this
Okay.
word comes from. AHU.
Aguacate is like what we call it, at least in Spain. So I'm glad they just um although I like alligator pear, but I'm glad that they just went back to its original etymology, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the word it was derived from. So avocados were first planted
Oh
in
wow.
Florida in 1833 and in California in 1856. They were in such high demand in the US by 1914 that buyers would pay as much as $1 a piece for fruit. Avocado growers realized they had the opportunity for enormous growth and profitability, but there was one big problem. Consumers didn't like the name,
Oh my
which
gosh.
is hilarious.
Bunch of
So before we called them avocados, they were commonly called um, ahua. Say it again, Leo.
aguacate.
Avocate. And
It's too
Americans
Spanish for
found
them.
it. Yes, exactly. Americans found it difficult to pronounce. In addition, the word happens to be the same word in Aztec for testicle.
Oh my gosh.
So I guess anyone that actually knew that was like, wait, what? So the avocado's other moniker was alligator pear, which explains, which Scientific American explains describe their fruit shape and its bumpy skin.
Right.
So it was in 1914 that a group of farmers decided to rename the fruit to make it more widely marketable. They settled on the name avocado, which referenced the fruit's Aztec roots, and the group of farmers organized the California Avocado Association.
Wow.
Um, let's
Go
see.
California.
Yeah, in 2020, the US avocado production weighed 206,610 tons and was worth $426 million.
Wow.
And then this article says, if you're feeling nostalgic for the alligator pear of yore, you can enjoy Georgia O'Keeffe's 1923
No
painting.
way.
Yes, titled Alligator Pears.
Boom.
We're
Oh my gosh. Okay. We're amazing.
amazing.
We're
Like you
amazing.
said, Julio, you're like Laura always says, you're trending, my friend.
This is incredible. This is like history that I had no idea about. And I feel like we just unearthed something so beautiful and amazing. I feel incredible. Thanks, Jen.
Sure.
Wow. Okay. Maybe she knew about the whole thing.
Maybe.
And then, because she was kind of like a jokester a little bit.
Right. Right.
She was a little bit of a jokester, so maybe, I don't know.
Well, it did seem that it changed before her paintings. So,
Yeah, before. Let's see.
yeah, so maybe she was like, oh, and no,
Yeah.
this is what this is called.
um, based on what you said, I'm assuming it's coming down like crazy here, by the way. It's raining really hard. I'm assuming that avocados were widely available in New York City. Yeah,
Oh, so yeah, let's look.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe available, but very difficult to afford, maybe.
Wow,
Um,
wow, wow.
what was the date that you wanted me to look up, Leo?
Oh, so this was painted in 1923. So yeah, and you said it like it just became widely available before,
Right.
in 1850s. I mean, that's plenty of time to, yeah, spread it around.
Let's see.
Wow. Uh, the LAGMA here in LA has an immense collection of religious Catholic painting dating hundreds of years ago from the Laura awful colonizers that used Catholic indoctrination in the form of paintings to sort of like impose their religion beliefs over the indigenous native people of the land. And I remember clearly there was a show recently. There was one sculpture made out of wood, um, and it was an image of a child holding. I think I mentioned this before, but it struck me as both beautiful, tremendous, and evil in the sense like the purpose of it. It was a child dressed with this incredible garments, like very regal from the Western perspective, I would say. And on one hand, it was holding half an avocado, and on the other hand, I was holding the heart of Christ, an actual image, well, a sculpture of a bloody heart with a crown of like spines or whatever, or thorns, I'm sorry. And nothing else, kind of like just like that, both. And the idea was for the Catholic Crusade to indoctrinate people in a non-verbal way, because they didn't speak the language. The Spanish didn't speak the language. So they meant to kind of like put this image and tell the native people or the people in the land, you have to choose. You have to choose between our religion or your way of life. I thought it was like so profound, and that was like 1500s, I would say, maybe early 1600s, after the invasion and atrocities and everything. There are many examples in paintings of depicting, the way of life of people living in the land using iconography that was contemporary to them but unknown to the invaders. And one of them was the avocado, the avocado being part of, associated with the daily life of people who lived in the kingdoms. All right, I'm gonna start painting. Sorry, I don't know if that was related or not, but I just remember that. And I made a painting actually inspired by it, because I thought it was really incredible. All right, so I'm not gonna use any green right now. And time-wise, yeah, it's not too bad. It's like the first hour, so. Wow. I don't know where any of these paintings are in the world. Any of her oils. Apparently she did 6, but she has other images that she did before. So I'm just gonna use maybe black. She used emerald green for her avocado paintings. One of them belonged or was purchased by a dear friend. His name was Charles Demuth. Charles Demuth was a painter. And I didn't know they were friends. I knew his work. So they were really good friends. They were such close friends, Georgia and Charles, that when he passed away, he gave all his paintings to her. And he was one of the artists that Alfred Stieglitz represented. Alfred Stieglitz was married to Georgia O'Keeffe. He not only represented Georgia O'Keeffe, but he represented a lot of artists. One of them was Charles Demuth. So naturally, not naturally, but I think unless Charles Demuth would specifically say something, the paintings would automatically get passed on to his art dealer, Stieglitz. And that wasn't the case. He made sure that the paintings were part of, or they were inherited by Georgia O'Keeffe. I know of Charles Demuth because he was one of the very few openly gay painters in New York City at the time. And she was friends with a lot of them. So I'm just reading the biography. Some of them were out because they were privileged and wealthy, and they could be out. Some of them were not. But it's nice to see, after all these kind of like archetypes of really bad men in her life, she had like some really good friends and allies who were men. Most of them were gay. Yeah, just really interesting. I love reading about this stuff. You won't read about this in museums, I'll tell you that. And it'd be nice to find out also which museum has the avocado paintings. The fact that this article mentions her paintings kind of like tells you how important they are, I would say. You know, you think of like Paul Cézanne and you think apples, and that's kind of like goes hand in hand. But there's so little information on Georgia O'Keeffe. I love, you know, we chose this subject just because I felt it was, we felt it was quirky and weird, and I don't know, really strange. But what you read, Jen, seems that there's so much more than that. That makes me happy. I have so much respect for Georgia O'Keeffe, you guys, just because I think I'm talking too much, but this is not easy. Yeah, it's not easy. I'm just doing the staining right now. And using neutrals. I'm using gray and black for now. Just I want to fill up the area. So bits and pieces or scenes in the book that I absolutely loved, and they're so ruthless painters, you guys. For example, so she traveled back and forth from New York to Teos, New Mexico, or the area, different areas. And she had a car in New Mexico, and she would love to she would drive the car. She'd love to drive and kind of like discover new landscapes and get out there. And so at some point in one of the trips, she moved the passenger seat of the car, moved it in a way, I think backwards or sideways, or completely removed it. So she could have enough space to hold a canvas as big as like 30 inches in the car, so she could paint plein air from the car. And I think there is a photograph. You don't see the entire car, but she's with a canvas inside of a car. And I never knew the context of it. But yeah, she loved to get lost, get far away, discover new landscapes, and paint from the car. I thought it was really hilarious and amazing. She was incredible. I don't know, for some reason, it just makes me sad that she's not automatically considered, or not considered. I'm sure, you know, she is considered a great painter, but oh, and she just had, you're gonna love this, Jen. And I don't mean this in a very funny or critical way. So at the time, because of the First World War, I don't know if you've seen All Quiet in the Western Front yet.
No, I'm not gonna see that.
You should, because it's super violent, but it's very good, and it kind of like gives you a scope about the war. You know, I learned a lot. Yeah. Anyhow, So um, it was kind of like just terrible. And I think there was an existential crisis of identity in America. Um, Not only after that, but especially also after the crash in the late 1920s. The crash devastated the country. I learned that there were the thousands of people, thousands of homeless people living in Central Park. I forgot the name of the shanty towns, but they had the same name of the president at the time. Anyhow, so it was like really, really like, yeah, Depression era. It's just absolutely horrific. And the artists of the time, they felt like they wanted to depict that. They wanted to kind of like show the reality of people experiencing this, but she was against it. She said, "This is not the America that I know. America is rich." There were a couple of like quotes. She refused to, like, there were a lot of photographs that took pictures of devastated families, homeless people, really bad situations during that time, the Depression era. She refused, and she got heavily criticized for it by left, politically left-thinking intellectuals, because she wasn't sort of like doing like a social thing with the suffering and crisis of the country. She purposely refused, and she had like a very, I would say, American conscience in the most positive way at a time when there was an existential crisis of trying to explain or identify with an American spirit. I think it's really powerful to read it because you could see a different side of approaching a devastating time in the history of this country, and how she saw it completely differently. And she was able to carve with her painting a different American spirit, a different identity. And my point is not just talk about this, it's the fact that she represents so much more than what we give her credit for, especially as someone that I feel it's so important in the history of this country, especially the contemporary history, or modern history rather. We keep hearing about Andy Warhols and all that stuff, and Jackson Pollocks, and which they were very important, but I don't think she's treated in the same or at the same level. And she was like Edward Hopper, which kind of like had also a very modernist approach to painting. But with her, she was much more important than these artists. And she represented for the spirit and the conscience of the country so much more. We're not giving her enough credit. What do you think? Sorry, Jen, that was a long.
No, I'm so curious as to what you think about her decision not to. I mean, it sounds like you think it's admirable. It surprises me just knowing you.
Yeah, we had
Like
this.
literally the sentence before you were like,
Yeah,
have you seen All Quiet on the Western Front? You should, because it's confronting and it, and so
right.
to not represent or to actively, be against
Yeah.
painting America as it was in that time. Um, and it just surprises me for
Yeah, I don't know.
you.
Yeah, we had like two fronts. Speaking of fronts, yesterday,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
um,
tell me.
it was the American front and the British front. And the British
Uh-huh.
front was pretty much, it was not like, I wouldn't say criticizing in a way, but in a way, yes, criticizing her.
The British front
The
was
British front was
by not representing.
by, I don't know, by being almost hypocritical in the sense
Mm-hmm.
that, the country was going through so much.
Yeah.
She didn't suffer any collateral damage from the Great Depression. She was, yeah, she didn't lose everything. She didn't suffer. She didn't. She lived a very pre Great Gatsby life, if you ask me.
Yeah.
She after the clinical depression, she went to Bermuda to recover at the house of this amazing, you know, friend, and she spent there
Mhm.
like walking by the beach and everything. So she was pretty sheltered. So I see the
Yeah.
criticism, I understand, but I there's something that I like about not um, caving into the negativity, I would say. Uh,
This is a new Julio.
I don't know what's happening, Jen.
I don't know what happened in Spain, but
I don't know. It's just sometimes when everything's so dark and dready, maybe just because of what we're going through today, which is nothing compared to, but it just seems like it's so easy to get into this funky, depressing mood just because
Mm,
everything's so bad and perspective, it's so kind of like depressing. There's something empowering about um, rebelling against that train of thought. And she did it, she just knew a different America. She saw wealth and richness and future, and she depicted it the way she saw it. She got flack for it,
hmm.
um, for sure. Um,
Yeah, I
but
mean, I guess it is like, I'm sorry. I
no,
think
go ahead.
um, we talk all the time about something being from a point of view, and that not everything has to be everything. And so if that was her point of view, her story is not going to be the same,
Yeah,
as I guess Dorothea Lang's,
yeah, that's right.
um,
That's right. Someone brought her name up also.
right. Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't want to say it wasn't important to her, because that sounds really harsh, but like, um, I don't know. I understand like being an artist where you want to be inspired, by your point of view and your own work. And if that wasn't something that spoke to her, or she didn't understand it, or she didn't like it or want it for America, like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. No,
It's
very
surprising me for a triple Scorpio.
right. Yeah. It is. It
Yeah.
is. Well, her triple Scorpio was in full display with this toxic relationship with
Yes.
this person. It was like Scorpio to the
Oh,
max.
yeah.
Really, really bad. Uh,
Yeah.
but I guess, yeah, I just found it yeah, I don't know. Now that I'm talking about it with you, yeah, I don't know. It just yeah, I think it's an interesting proposition
Hmm.
to reflect on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I see both sides. She was painting flowers. People were dying.
Right.
I mean, the rate
Right.
of suicide
Right.
in 1932 was outrageous.
Hmm.
The Yeah, what happened after the days, I mean, the years after was just really terrible. It was really bad. It was really bad.
Yeah.
Um, maybe if I would have been in that situation and seeing someone painting flowers with pastel colors, I would have been, what the heck? What is this?
Very Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, it's so tone
Also
deaf.
a Scorpio.
Yeah, absolutely tone deaf. And so I don't know. I don't know what to think, but yeah.
It's interesting though, like, I can understand, I guess, in the time, if people were like, you know, what the hell, you're,
Mm.
read the room.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
but that people still disregard her now because of that choice? Is that kind of the idea?
No, I think no. I think because if you look for it, I think in fact, if you don't mind, because that'd be
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Years later, she was already like super famous, but years later, Life magazine, 1938, Life magazine cover with Georgia O'Keeffe. And it's so Americana. If you kind of like search for it and look for it, and I feel like at the time, 1938, there was a reckoning in the sense that people realized that she did represent the spirit of America, embodied
Mm-hmm.
and not only in herself as a person and the way she expressed herself visually, but obviously in her paintings. So there was that conscience of
Mm.
what she represented that was acknowledged later on. But in that time, early 1930s, it wasn't. The cover of Life magazine wasn't, all this. So she did get
Mm.
recognized, and I think that that was a very important uh, cultural moment, pop culture, I would say. That cover, 1938 cover. Um, I just feel like the arc of time tells a story that ends up with her becoming the symbol of so much that represents America. And I just feel like that it's not contextualized or maybe taken into consideration today, compared to other artists who represented the spirit of America in different ways. Jackson Pollock represented the spirit of America also in the 50s in a different
Mm.
way. Um, yeah, and other people, different times in different ways. Jean-Michel Basquiat, we could even say, represented the
Mm.
spirit of America at a different time in a different way. But so did Georgia O'Keeffe.
Sure.
And I think, she doesn't come up as such. All right. So while you look for that cover, if you found it, we can
I
post
found
it.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think of it?
I was surprised by it. In fact, I thought that I mistyped something.
Do you think, yeah, surprised in the sense that does it make you feel that the magazine is trying to represent her as a symbol? Or
I don't know. This is, I guess what I'm trying to say is this is not how I would have imagined
mm,
her to.
I'll tell you also another painting, one painting that if you can find. So she started to paint skulls
Mm-hmm.
because she discovered or she found that the landscape was littered with cow skulls.
Mm-hmm.
We had an interesting conversation, and we forgot to ask the author the reason why she actually painted skulls. But there is a skull um, it's titled, I think, Cow Skull Red, White, and Blue. And she painted it
Okay.
specifically. It almost feels like it's her version of the American flag. And that was 1930s. Um, it's one of her most famous paintings. And it has a skull, and one side is red, the other side is blue, and the skull is white.
Mm-hmm.
And this has to do also with her idea of how to what how would she contribute as an artist to her own idea of an American identity. And then there's this painting, with a flower and a skull. I don't know if it's a symbol of death, but it's a beautiful painting. Aesthetically, it is beautiful. Um, so anyhow, if you look for this, one of the things that I'm going to say is that she used emerald green to paint her avocados. Avocados are not emerald green, if you ask me. Emerald green is too blue it's too blue. There's more yellow in that dark color. But at the same time, Laura, go all out. Everyone. I'm gonna use emerald green, and I'm gonna tone it down with some browns to pull it back, because I feel like color-wise, we don't have to match that skin color of the avocado, but why not bring in a little bit of color interpretation? So I'm gonna experiment with, I'm not gonna use yellow. I'm gonna use emerald green, or we don't have emerald green, we have Viridian green, which has a lot of blue. And I'm gonna bring some, yeah, I think that's a good color. Yes, I think I was right. So Viridian green or some bluish green that you may have, and then bring some burnt sienna to it. Yeah, I think that's very good. Or even Viridian green and black. I think that's also very good. So I'm just gonna try to, it's very bluish, but that's totally fine. Yeah. What do you think of the painting? Have you?
Found it. Okay, I know that we're not supposed to say this about Georgia O'Keeffe, but it feels very sexual.
Oh.
It looks like a pair of pants in a dude's wiener.
Okay, I didn't see that, Jen, so I'm just calling you out on it.
It's fine. I'm happy to take it. But okay. Yeah. I mean, okay, but then look at it again.
Yeah, I'm sure. She tried to control her message when other people wrote things that she didn't imply. Sometimes she contacted our critics and
Right.
told them to
Right.
change.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's why I said with caveat. Like I know we're not supposed to say this.
Oh no,
stuff,
no, 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 no.
But
I'm just saying that, one of her criticism was that if someone kind of like writes this about painting, it tells more about the projections of that
of
person
course,
than the
yeah,
painting.
absolutely.
I'll find that.
Listen, you guys, it's a cold Friday.
I know. No, I know you can join on Thursdays or Wednesdays, but we have a lot of fun in those conversations,
Sure.
Jen.
No, I know. I hope sometime I can.
Yeah, it was really.
Okay, wait. So Julio, question for you.
Yes.
So, okay, what other American artists were painting at the same time as Georgia O'Keeffe?
Oh, painting. Hartley, Marsden Hartley.
And is that a he?
Yes.
Did he capture what was happening in America?
Yes. There's a certain brutalist approach to figures. Yes, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like brutalist. Charles Demuth painted a lot of
Oh,
sailors
that's right. You said that. Yeah.
and figures, and was more homoerotic, but also very austere and sad. Um, I know that Edward Hopper came like much later. I don't know, or maybe I think much later, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I think he came around in like the 30s. And I remember actually I seen a Hopper exhibit in New York, and I
Uh-huh.
actually liked his work in the beginning of his life more than I did
Yeah. So
his
maybe the
more famous works later.
idea of loneliness,
Yeah.
silence could also be, part of this. Who else?
Oh gosh,
Oh,
it was
there were
horrid.
Marin. I forgot his first name, but he was also painting. But this was like a group of people that were not necessarily, they were on the boat of Georgia O'Keeffe. Uh, so they were not necessarily on the boat of Dorothea Lange.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean, even, yeah, even Hopper, while depicting an emotional state, definitely, you know, the people that he painted had some means,
yeah,
you know, even if that was just shelter.
yeah. So perfect. We have time. We have time. So I'm just making my own interpretation, translation, just doing a little bit of like surface work. Um, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with this painting. Um, it's a really good book. It's a really, I know it's super thick and long, but it's really amazing. So many incredible themes and oh, and you're gonna like this. If I may, I think there was a piece. It's really good um, about her being frustrated with. Uh, in fact, I'm just gonna read it to you, and it has to do with this idea that she was criticized for being tone deaf. There's an interview with Vanity Fair, one journalist from Vanity Fair, and she pushed back. And I think if I read this to you, you'll probably uh, have a better perspective. I'm gonna try to find it because I think it was like really interesting. She had shows every year. She sold. It was yeah. Okay, so this was an interview um, in 1930. She agreed to debate someone called Michael Gold. He was the editor of a magazine. Sorry, it wasn't the Vanity Fair. It was called New Masses. New Masses. With the name, you can kind of like see that it was sort of like socialist leaning, uh, kind of like publication, right? And uh, yeah, it was like an actual live debate. There was an audience. Um, so he kind of like starts and says that artists were obliged to depict the conditions of the oppressed. Um, O'Keeffe reminded him that all women were oppressed and that her success was a symbolic victory for all women. Um, and then she kind of like defends herself and says, I have had to go to men as sources in my painting because the past has left us so small an inheritance of women's painting that has widened life. And I would hear men saying, she's pretty good for a woman. She paints like a man. That upset me. Before I put brush to canvas, I question, is this mine? Is it all intrinsically of myself? Is it influenced by some idea of some photograph, of an idea which I have acquired from some man? I don't know if that makes sense, but to me, it kind of like says, you know, that perhaps she didn't want to go along with what other men were mainly doing. So she
Sure.
wouldn't be viewed or seen as being influenced by other men. So maybe there was something there like fiercely independent,
Mm-hmm.
maybe tone deaf for sure, but also very much independent, just because she
Mhm.
was perfectly aware that yeah, there were not many references of women artists, and whatever she got was as a source, it was just painted by a man. It's amazing, like we're talking about 1930, the feminist conscience that she had. She was not even 30
Mhm.
years old, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, it's, you know, I think this is incredible. We're talking about these things today. Um, she didn't disagree with the premise, but she felt that she was doing what she needed to do
Yeah.
as a part of the oppressed as well. Uh, and the fact that she was a woman. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I also wonder if maybe like it was like an active rebellion to not, do what seemed
Yeah,
so obvious, you know, like maybe we're saying it's from a point of privilege, but maybe it was actually just from a point of rebellion or knowing better or yeah,
yeah,
maybe the thought of let me think about this. I mean, who knows? She could
yeah,
think that America was, that America was in this position with the crash because of a bunch of men,
yeah.
you know, and
Maybe.
maybe didn't want to reflect that,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah, yeah. She didn't. Certainly, she didn't want to do what others uh would ask her to do, because that's essentially the threat of her life since she was born. You know, and especially with this relationship, she was controlled. She was told what to paint, what to
mhm,
show, what
yeah,
to hang. Everything was pretty much controlled, you know.
right,
So you're absolutely right. Maybe when she was told that she was supposed to do this for the men of the country, she probably
hmm,
said, screw it, you know, I'm
yeah,
also oppressed.
right.
That's a good point, I think.
One for the Americans.
Yeah. No, in that sense, that to me, it's, you know, just that's why I said that she represents a lot more. Okay, I'm bringing some red here. I'm not sure. Some Indian red, because I see alizarin crimson. I'm starting to see warmth.
Mm.
Uh, I'm gonna just like do a bunch of layers. This will happen. I know it will happen, but it's gonna take a little bit more time.
Did you say that was alizarin, Julio, or did you?
Alizarin crimson,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Um, uh, this morning, it was like funny. I took a picture. I'm gonna show it later. But this morning, Kian um uh, says, "I just found an avocado at the door." I said, "What?" And he comes in and he has an avocado in his hand, and I was like, "What is it?" I mean, I have no idea. I mean, maybe the neighbor, the neighbor has an
Oh,
avocado tree. Yeah.
how
No, I thought like since you're
funny.
gonna do, say that again. Sorry.
I just said how funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought since you're gonna do this today, I just found this avocado in the door, and then I'm like, I was really puzzled, but I took a picture of the avocado with the hand. And then he's like, take it. And then I took it, and it was a little coin purse.
Oh my gosh.
And so yesterday, someone at the office had this with lipstick and stuff like that. And then he saw it and he asked her to dump everything from the little coin purse. So he brought it home just to show it to
Oh
me.
my gosh.
And it
Only
was so
Kian.
real. It was plastic with a zipper. It was plastic. But it
Wow.
was so apparently you can find it on Amazon really easily. So
Okay, I'll find it.
can you? Because I'm gonna buy it.
Yeah.
It's really cute.
I'll find it and post it. And I'll put it in the notes or the link, and then I'll
Okay.
post the picture of it so everyone can
Yeah.
see it.
Apparently it's like super easy to find.
Avocado coin purse. That's what I'm looking for.
Coin, maybe avocado coin purse. It's like the size of an avocado. Plastic. It's probably not good for the environment, but with a zipper, a black zipper.
Oh my god.
You found it? It's-
They're nuts, man. There's a few.
oh, really?
Yeah.
It's fun, right?
It's super fun. It looks so much. I mean,
Yeah, I thought it was really cute.
okay, do you want Amazon's choice or do you want the less expensive one?
I don't know. I don't know. The one that looks
Okay,
good. I don't know.
I'm gonna do Amazon's choice because I think it looks the most like it.
Okay. Okay.
You can-
I'm gonna give myself like a little bit less than 30 minutes, but in this 30 minutes, something in this painting needs to happen. I feel like there's no magic still happening here. And I don't want to just find an excuse and say that I was talking too much because we pull it off. We always pull it off. But it'll be interesting to share experiences later with everyone. Maybe it's the surface. I'm not sure, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time here. And it's just the color. It's not the texture. It's the color. I love the variations from dark to light. I think the shape is okay. I just need to um, work a little bit more the variations, I believe. I'm doing like short brush strokes. Yeah, I'm gonna get there. I know I'm gonna get there. It's a matter of like time. I know I'm gonna get there, but yeah, but certainly this like surprised me in many ways. Yeah, I will get there. Need to focus a little bit, spend a little bit of time, and I think I probably need um, an extra session here. I'm gonna use yellow ochre for the stem. So I think that's gonna be super important on both sides. And on the stem, there's a radiating sort of like light. I see a lot of like colors. I see pink. So I'm just gonna do a few details. Radiating brushstroke on the side. And also I'm gonna paint a darker line in certain spots to give an impression. much darker underneath. So I'm just gonna bring that. And also maybe the Viridian green with some white or some gray. Viridian white and gray. So something about the coloring that I think could work. Yeah, I think so. It's the white bouncing on the, yeah. I'm squinting my eyes. And also there's some bouncing of light on the back. So I'm just gonna do that also. Some dark notes right here. Bring some white, and it's a little bit too green, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'll bring some of the raw umber. If you have Van Dyke Brown around, I think that could be a good color also to add. There's so much color on the skin. Also another kind of like discovery. I'm so happy we're doing this, not just to understand her work a little bit more, but also as a way to discover the variations. I'm gonna bring some black here. I need to make it a little bit more like a pear. So yeah, just I think I'm getting a little bit more, a little bit happier with the little bit of work that I'm doing. Kind of like building. Not sure about the alizarin crimson, but I think I'm going to overlay something. I may need to. It's freezing cold, so I think the avocados will not go bad out here. The way she painted, she stylized the avocado. So she stylized everything. And I think that's also something so very much like her. It's figuration, you recognize elements, but it's not realism. There's something that goes beyond likeness. It's highly stylized. It requires an incredible capacity to create something that is recognizable but has a style. And she did it, you know. Sometimes it's funny because everyone recognizes her style, and just because it's so recognizable, it almost feels like we take it for granted. Oh, this must have been so easy for her to do. But when you kind of like isolate the paintings, I'm gonna try to create almost a more exaggerated and realize that it takes an incredible capacity again to simplify a shape, to simplify it. I'm going to bring more white in the background. This weekend, Jen, it was the Bob Baker's Day, and they postponed it. I don't know if you saw that.
I did see that. Yeah. Yeah, there's no way. Even if it wasn't raining, like where I don't know if they do it in the same place, but
Yeah, it's the same place. I think I don't know if it's the same place, but
it would be so muddy, even if it wasn't
yeah,
actually raining.
yeah, yeah. I don't know why I jumped. to that topic.
This looks so great, Julio. I know that you're frustrated, but
Really?
it looks amazing. Yeah.
So a very fig-like, but it'll, thanks for the support.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, a little focus, but I know I can just build it even further. I think it's just the color. I just see kind of like purple for some reason, but it's not purple. So I'm just gonna mix different colors here. Oh my gosh, cerulean blue. Okay, this is late to the party. Oh, Laura, you don't have to say it because thank you. Cerulean blue and burnt sienna. Cerulean blue and burnt sienna make avocado green, period. Cerulean, it's just so gorgeous. Cerulean blue and burnt sienna. There you go. It's the color. This is the color. Wow. Okay, Jen, add it to the notes. This is like a major discovery. How do you make avocado skin? Cerulean blue and burnt sienna. Boom. And it's just perfect. It's rich. It's has a green cast, but it keeps that bronze looking stuff, which is so quintessentially avocado like. Amazing. So exciting and happy with these discoveries. So I'm going to bring some black a little bit more. I think I want to cut this. A little bit more. Starting to add a lot of paint here. I'm just going to bring, which color should I bring? Maybe, yeah. Burnt sienna is everywhere. Burnt sienna, yeah. So I'm adding burnt sienna with gray. And then I'm gonna use, I need to work on the shadows. The shadows need to be a little bit more sophisticated. This is a little bit cheesy. The shadows are a little bit cheesy. I'm gonna bring some dark. This is much darker on the shadow side. Much darker on the shadow side. So it's gonna be a little bit hard to change. The shadow side, it's much darker than the avocado. So I'm going to try to change the balance here. Okay, good. Okay, well, you know, it's getting like really wet, but I can still work with it. And then the top, I'm going to use this avocado color and try to bring some texture on the skin. There's something about yeah, I'm using this avocado color with cerulean blue and burnt sienna, and I'm mixing it with gray a little bit, and I'm going to tone down or overlay a little bit of color over the alizarin crimson, because I feel like the alizarin crimson, it's too warm. And I think that does, I don't want to cover the alizarin crimson completely. I wanted to, yeah, I wanted to still be there and give you almost like a cast, like a third note. but toning down that color, because it's too warm and it gets feel like it's confusing the identity. Okay, so I'm rushing, but I feel like I'm getting some results with this kind of like thinking process. I was a little bit too distracted and entertained and engaged with the conversation. Thank you, Jen. But I feel like I am getting back to, I'm not gonna change the brush, but maybe using it a little bit more vertically and totally creating smaller, grainier dots, almost like it needs to be a little bit more texturized. Yeah, doesn't have to be completely, oops. This needs to be darker. In fact, it needs to be way darker. So I'm gonna bring some more black on this area. I just love the fact that on the skin, there's such gradation, a lot of crescent shapes. And I see a lot of gradation. I also see a lot of, it's also shiny. There's some shine. So I'm gonna bring some white and add some, again, working darker to lighter, very traditional, and reserving some of the highlights. And I just feel like this rough skin or this frog-like or toad-like, there's some super shiny reflections. Not not a lot of them, but maybe not super, not as shiny, but maybe with some gray. Literally, my brush is just, yeah. And okay, so the shadows are a little bit better. I'm gonna create more of a gradation without any paint. I'm creating a blending here. Also making this edge a little bit softer on the shadow. I don't want the shadow to be super harsh. I'm gonna bring some white on this area. This feels very pattern-like, this protrusions that I did. Just feels a little bit too, almost like predictable. So I'm sanding the skin. Oh, something's happening. Something's happening. Okay. I feel a little bit more confident right now. All right. Something's happening. The magic's happening slowly. Okay. Good. Yeah, we have like 10 minutes. So I just wanted to pull myself out of a hole that I felt I was in. Okay, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. Okay. um, oh, this is so much fun. Thank you for, this is so important. I feel like this is our afternoon tea, but instead it's like morning painting. Sort of like regular meetings. So good. Makes me so happy. And I get so much out of this. And today, so many discoveries. Avocados are hard. They're extremely colorful on the outside. Cerulean and burnt sienna. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the other shadow. This needs to have a little bit more. Cerulean and burnt sienna make avocado green. So some gossip, Jen, about Georgia Keefe. She had a sister, she was a painter as well. And when Georgia O'Keeffe started to get like recognition and financial success and everything, her sister started to paint like Georgia O'Keeffe. She painted flowers. She was already famous, Georgia O'Keeffe. So everyone was like, oh my gosh, another O'Keeffe is also painting flowers. And she started to get solo shows in New York City. So she started to get commercial success. Georgia O'Keeffe was so pissed off. So she was so upset because she didn't ask her sister for advice or anything like that, that she wrote a letter to her saying, you know what, you need to stop. They didn't speak for 4 years. And after 4 years, the sister finally kind of like gives up and says, I'm not going to paint anymore. But there was a very strong rivalry between two sisters who painted, and one of them started to get recognition. She was very protective of her own achievements, Georgia O'Keeffe. Very protective. I thought that was interesting. Meaning, you know, I didn't know that side of the story. I'm gonna make these a little bit softer. So the avocados concentrate the texture. Oh, the avocados concentrate the texture. The background is much softer. Yeah, we have time. So I think that my intention is to actually make the skin of the avocado have the illusion of much more roughness if I actually soften the background. Look at this amazing avocado painting. Okay, now I'm starting to like it a little bit. Sorry. Okay. It's not too bad. I'm just I think the bit of the avocado that makes it recognizable is that thing that sometimes when you prepare the avocado falls into the salad and then you chew on it and it's hard and it almost breaks your teeth. So careful with that stem or the remains. It's hard as like the shell of a peanut. And if it drops in your salad, you know, it could be dangerous. I'm just gonna bring. Uh-oh. Okay, this is protruding too much. I am already seeing that I need to change the shape. I don't know if I should wipe it off, but this needs to be definitely rounder. I'm shaving from the side. Oh yeah. Drawing never stops. The drawing component. I'm actually going to expand this shadow down a little bit more. Yeah, so kind of like it looks more like raised up. It has more volume. The cast shadow needed to be. Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna soften the shadow also here, the edge. I'm gonna soften this edge. I want a contrast between the hard edge of the avocado and the soft edge of the shadow. Oh yeah. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Yes, I'm gonna bring this cast shadow that has a weird effect here. And it blends. Amazing. I'm gonna close the gap. There's still some white peeking. All right, this is much better. Okay, I'm gonna exhale. I feel like, you know, the last half an hour felt like a sprint to me. I just needed to regain a little bit of control. It was just because I was having too much fun. I'm gonna bring some lighter skin reflection on the top. I think so. I need to be careful because I'm overworking it. Just remember, there's a fine line between building and then overworking. And I feel like now I am overworking this. Wasn't it good enough? I think I'm not now sort of like messing it up a little bit. No, it's okay. It's okay. Okay. This is another thing. I think this avocado is better than the other avocado, but it's okay. I'm just gonna bring some highlights. And now I'm in a position in which I can be a little bit more magnanimous and make sure that everyone is deserving of the same amount of attention. So rather than just saying, oh my gosh, this is better than the other one, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to bring some, ooh, this avocado is good. Can't wait to see what you guys have done and what's your experience with it. This was a complete epiphany, discovery. I would have never imagined how challenging but also rewarding this is. It started being sort of like a little joke about, you know, innuendo and sexuality, but I feel like now I'm completely absorbed with visual elements, shape, texture, shadows, values, third notes, snow association. Maybe that's also, in a way, why not? Maybe, oh yeah, this is a little bit too decorative right now. It's a little bit too decorative. Maybe it's also this idea, and I'm glad we're doing this because sometimes as an spectator, you can have an idea of a painting, but when you're actually working on it, then you see the wizard behind the curtain. So perhaps when she was hands-on painting her beautiful flowers and stuff, she was completely absorbed by the visual elements. They overtook the process and it just makes sense. I'm just doing this avocado and I'm not thinking about what it means and represents or anything. I'm just thinking about all the aspects of it that are so fascinating. Maybe that's why when you are so absorbed with this idea and then someone writes about some conceptual suggestion, you're like, wait a second, what is this kind of like nonsense? Because that's exactly how I feel with painting this. I'm just seeing, okay, it's still a little bit too granular for my taste. It's a little bit too granular. But I know that I'm being very finicky right now. So one more minute. Anyhow, I'm gonna drop it essentially right now, but I am really enjoying this and I'm gonna continue after lunch. I think it's gonna be still a very good light for it. So I'm gonna stop the recording and we're gonna take a 10-minute break. I'm gonna take some photos and upload. I can't wait to see what you guys have done. This was absolutely amazing. Thanks for joining. I know it was like super short notice because we didn't do the presentation until this morning. We'll reconvene in 10 minutes. Stretch, hydrate, nourish, and listen to your body needs. And I'm going to stop the recording. So when we come back, we can chat a little bit and see what how you guys experience it. So I'll see you in one bit.